Howdy Beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Howdy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Luke, the intrepid spacefaring adventurer. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good, as per usual. Today, we're going to be looking into Titan A.E. from the year 2000. The year 2000 sounds more futuristic than it actually is, considering it was 25 years ago now. Jesus Christ, I feel old. Anyway, moving on. Before we get into today's topic, I want to do housekeeping because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So make sure that you follow me on Twitter, now known as X, at howdybeans_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And finally, if you listen to this on Spotify, on your mobile phone, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating. So, as I mentioned, we're looking into Titan A.E. I've never seen this movie at all. It's always been on my radar, and it's always been one that I've seen on TikTok, I've seen on like YouTube Shorts, or I've seen other podcasts talk about. But I've never actually sat and watched it myself. And I was flicking through Disney Plus, as you do, trying to find things I haven't seen, and it popped up right there as like suggested. And I thought, you know what, I haven't seen this film before. It's been on my radar. I don't know when I'll ever get around to it again. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to watch it, but I'm going to talk about it for the podcast as well, because I feel like it seems like an interesting film. From everything I've heard from everybody as well, it seems like a film that is definitely worth talking about. So that's why we are here today. So, as for the movie synopsis, so Earth is a memory of the past. It's the 31st century and humanity is on the brink of total annihilation, all except for one young man who holds the map to the universe's last hope, Titan. In a race against time, the human race has to find the Titan before the elusive dredge destroy it. And that is the synopsis of the film. As for the cast, so the cast is bloody hell, pretty stacked, to be honest. So you've got Matt Damon as Kale, Drew Barrymore as Kima, K-A-K-I-M-A, Kima, I think. Bill Pullman as Corso, Jim Breuer as the cook, Ken Hudson Campbell as Poe. I'm trying to find other sort of record. Jim Cummins is in this as Chow Quinn. I love Jim Cummins. John Leguizamo as Goon, Nathan Lane as Preed. Yeah, you know, it's a pretty... Jenna Graffia as Stiff. I always really struggle to say her last name, but I know the Doom Generation ladies love her, but she's in this as well. I do apologise if I butchered the name. I most likely did, to be honest. I always do whenever I have to say her last name. Anyway, that is your cast. As for the development, so Titan A.E. was originally intended to be a live-action film, tentatively titled Planet Ice, with Art Villallo hired to direct. By November 1997, the project had been revamped into an animated feature, with Matt Damon joining the voice cast, along with Bill Pullman, Drew Barrymore, Nathan Lane, Jim Breuer, Janine Garofalo, and Lena Olin. In an interview with Variety, Chris Madanari, then president of Fox Family Films, stated, "The imaginary would be too costly to realise in live action. It will distinguish this film, which has a cast not only of humans but also aliens, and the group of actors we've put together is about the finest assembled for an animated film." By September 1997, Ben Edlund had written the first screenplay and draft. John August came aboard the project in February 1998 and was hired to polish the dialogue, but remained on the project for further rewrites. The film's visual effects were handled by the Blue Sky VIFX visual effects studio, and millions had been spent on pre-visualization tests of the space environments and spacecraft. In February 1998, Vitello departed the project. During the summer of 1998, Bill Mechanic, I feel like that's how you say his last name, then chairman of 20th Century Fox, handed the script to Fox Animated Studios creative head Don Bluth and Gary Goldman. Don Bluth is an absolute animation legend, by the way, who had finished directing Bartok the Magnificent in 1999. Mechanic had no in-development projects for Fox Animation Studios to work on and was faced with the choice of potentially laying off the animation staff unless they took another project. Despite their inexperience with the science fiction genre, Bluth and Goldman took the script regardless. Bluth explained, "When we came to Fox, one of the things that we all talked about was that we shouldn't try to be a Disney wannabe. We wanted to make a picture that's edgier, still reaches the family and goes a little further and even brings in the teenagers. Josh Whedon, who had signed a multi-picture film and television deal with 20th Century Fox, was hired to finalize the script. As directors, Bluth and Goldman were given a production budget of about $55 million and 19 months to finish the film. Before their involvement, $30 million had been spent on pre-production. Unlike Bluth and Goldman's previous films, the animation in Titan A.E. is predominantly computer generated, while the main characters and several backgrounds were traditionally animated. Many of the scenes were enacted by the animation staff using hand-built props before being captured by a computer. Many scenes and backgrounds were painted by concept artist Paul Cheng, who had previously worked on Anastasia in 1997 and its direct-to-video spin-off Bartok the Magnificent from 1999. Much like Anastasia, the storytelling and tone in Titan A.E. is much darker and edgier than Bluth and Goldman's previous films, with the film being regularly compared to Japanese anime. Although Bluth and Goldman denied any influence by anime, they had acknowledged the comparison. During production, Fox Animation Studios suffered a number of cutbacks, which ultimately led to its closure in 2000. Over 300 animation staff were laid off from the studio in 1999, and as a result, much of the film's animation was outsourced to several independent studios. Several scenes were contracted to David Paul Dozen's Proverb Group. The Wake Angels scene was animated by Reality Check Studios, their first feature film work, while the film's Genesis scene was animated by Blue Sky Studios. We all know how much I love them, who would later go on to produce 20th Century Fox's The Ice Age, Rio, Horton Hears a Who, and the Peanuts movie. Under pressure from executives, Bill Mechanic was dismissed from 20th Century Fox prior to Titan A.E.'s release, eventuating in the closure of Fox Animation Studios on June 26, 2000. 10 days after the film's release, all these events stunted the film's promotion and distribution. So that is everything for the production of the movie. So yeah, it's got me interested, got me excited. This generally, from what I've seen of it, it feels like a movie for the 2000s. It feels like kind of like the end of a sort of decade of not a decade, an end of a century. Really, it's like at the beginning of the century, this is what we had in terms of hand-drawn sort of animation and how animation has advanced over the century. And by the time we've got to 2000, kind of the beginning of a new century, this is what animation can be in the future, taking computer-generated art and then sort of adding in 2D animation as well. So that's got me excited. And again, it's a stat cast as well. Like, I should like it. So we'll see. So I'm very much excited. I've got my fingers crossed, and we'll see if it's good or not. Hopefully it is. We'll see. Without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? And welcome back, everybody. So I've just finished watching Titan A.E. And actually, while I was watching the movie, I was trying to figure out what A.E. means. Was it like after Earth, after extinction, that sort of thing? Because this movie doesn't really explain a lot. And I'll get into that. But sort of starting with my first impressions, this is the most 2000s movie ever. And what I mean by that is the fact of, if you grew up in the 2000s or even in sort of the early 90s, and a bit of the late 90s, you will remember that nearly every movie, you'd have a moment where it was just like, okay, a bit of story, and all of a sudden you'd have a montage that had like hard rock. And like there was a moment in this film that it happened that many times. I'm expecting like in a minute I'm going to hear Creed. I'm like, can you take me higher to a place where blind men see? You know what I mean? Like, I was waiting for that sort of Creed moment. Didn't come, sadly, but there was a lot of those moments where, you know, you'd have the bit of the film, then you'd have a lot of expose, and then you'd have this montage of them fixing a ship or in a really sort of hardcore battle. And like even in these battles where they're going against the dredge, they felt like old school rock music videos. You know, you wouldn't see the characters much. It would just be like they're on some really epic looking demonic planet, and they're going around fighting the dredge. And then you got this hard rock on in the background, and it just felt like a music video at times. So it felt very sort of 2000s, late 90s sort of things. It just felt very nostalgic for me. I was like, oh god, I remember when movies had this all the time. It became a thing, and like, why is it no longer a thing? Because I do remember enjoying it. I remember being like, oh yeah, you have this moment, and you've got them doing something, and then you got the hard rock. Like, even again, I don't know why, because it's not linked at all. But the movie Ghost Ship, that's a good example where you just have like a certain moment, and all of a sudden it's just hard rock, and then it's back to being scary, then a bit of hard rock again. And like horror movies did it a lot as well, especially in the early 2000s, especially like the end of that movie. At the end of that movie, you've got the guy who gets on the new ship, and then you got this hard rock starting, and I don't know, it was just a thing back in like the 2000s where every movie had to either in the film or at the end of the movie just had to end on that sort of hard rock sort of screamer sort of music. It was a time, but it was a good time, and I missed that time. But apart from that, like I said, my first sort of impressions is I did like it. It is an interesting movie, but as I mentioned at the very, very beginning, the only issue I have, and I'll get into it when we get into the story, is the fact of the movie doesn't really explain anything. It basically begins, and then it's the fact of 15 years later, you have the main character Kale. And he's like, we've got to go find the Titan. Why do we got to find the Titan? It's because it's the only way that we can save humanity. Okay. Why the dredge? Who are they? What are they there for? Oh, they're there because they want to take out humanity. They fear whatever humanity can be. Okay, but why? Don't worry about it. It's like watching an episode of Doctor Who. It's like, I'll explain later. But it never does explain it. You're like, oh, I'm okay, fine, all right. We're just going to keep moving on. We're going to forget that. And that was the only real thing about it, is the fact of the visuals are gorgeous. I love the mix between 2D and 3D. I thought that was beautiful. But there are moments where I'm sitting there going, well, why are we here? Why is the arcs, not the arc, sorry, why is the Titan so important? What is it? And again, at the end of the movie, you do realize why it's so important, of what it is and what it can do. But then you realize the fact of, hold on a second, why did the dredge want to kill humanity? Why did the dredge kill, destroy Earth in the first place? Like, what was the point? Like, what was leading up to it? Like, it's missing a lot of narrative beats. It's missing a lot of sort of exposition of just trying to explain to the audience, this is why the dredge hate humanity, and this is why humanity built the Titan, and this is why, like, I'll get into story, but this is why, like, the humans are here, and so forth. Like, certain things are answered and certain things are not answered. It is literally, it's like it's an adventure, but it's very much the fact of, we're going to go here, here, and here, and here, and here. We're going to do something really cool and epic and visually stunning here, and then we're going to go to the next set piece, and we're going to do the same thing here, and then X, Y, and Z, and then we get sort of to the end. It's overall not bad. It's just the fact of the story feels a bit loose. It feels that you're coming here from, this movie feels more of a test. It feels more of a prototype, of an example of trying to show to audiences, like, this is the future of animation. This is what we can do with technology that we have now. We can take what we've known for all these generations and years with 2D animation, and then we can seamlessly transition it into 3D and have it work simultaneously together in sort of a symbiotic sort of relationship. And it does work beautifully in this. And that's what it feels like. It feels like a test. It feels like a sort of example of what potentially could be the future of this technology. And for that, again, like I said, it works beautifully. But for the story, not so much. But yeah, first impressions, I did enjoy it, if a bit confused. As for the story itself, so the story, like I mentioned, it focuses mostly around Kale. So how to explain it? Because again, so I'm just going to start from the beginning. There are going to be some spoilers. I'm going to jump around a bit, but the long and short of it is the fact of the dredge, for some unknown reason, because it's never properly explained, have decided to go to war with humanity. Like, we just want to exterminate all humans, just because. And all of the colony ships are leaving Earth at the beginning of the movie, and that the one colony ship that's the most important, the Titan, manages to evade the dredge and manages to shoot itself off light speed into like unknown territory of space and lost forever. And then sort of 15 years later, we meet Kale. He was, he was one of the last few people to leave the planet. His dad was on the Titan, so he's now basically a salvager. He's working with all these other sort of aliens, salvaging bits of scrap in space, and you can tell at this point he's kind of given up on the whole idea of humanity and sort of wanting to save it. It's like, I don't really care. I don't really care much for my dad. My dad left me. All this jazz, very sort of teenage angst sort of problems. And then you have a guy called Corso. He comes in and he's basically like, look, your ring that you're wearing that your dad gave you, it is a map, and that map will lead us to the Titan, and with the Titan we can save humanity. But at no point, as I said, does it explain why or what the Dredge want. It's just the fact of we just need to get there. And again, fair enough, you do get there eventually, and it does somewhat explain it. Mostly it's explained through sort of visuals and actually spoken, but I'll explain that when we get there. So they get attacked by the Dredge. Corso and Kale manage to get free. You meet Akima, you meet other sort of members of the crew. Now, one thing I do love about this universe is the fact of it feels alive, it feels lived in. And what I mean by that is the fact of one of the reasons why I love Mass Effect so much, and it always comes back to Mass Effect, is the fact of that feels like a lived-in galaxy. It feels alive because there's not just the humans and two other species. Like whenever you play Halo or you play other sort of science fiction worlds and games, there's always like humans and then there's like one or two other sort of alien races. And you're like, well, is there any others? And like no matter how many games and expansions comes out, it's always just the same. And it's the same with Destiny and all these other series. But I love Mass Effect because there's loads of different races. You've got the humans, you've got the Quarian, you've got the Geth, you've got the Krogan, you've got the Asari, you've got the Turians, you've got the Hanai, you've got the Drell. Like there's so many races, and each one of them is not just unique, but also have so much heritage and culture and so much to learn. Again, that's why that universe sucks you in. And that's what I really appreciated about this film, was the fact of nearly every single scene you saw an alien in, they never looked the same. You had different aliens, different species, different ideas and concepts about how they looked and how they moved and spoke. And I love that because it feels lived in. It feels like we are in another part of the universe. We're a part of another galaxy where like there are life everywhere. That it's not just humans; it's everything else. And again, coming to Mass Effect, humans in this story are very much like the Quarians. Now, for anybody who hasn't played Mass Effect, I'll give you sort of the 2-on-1 sort of lowdown on what I mean by that. Is the fact of the Quarians built the Geth, which are like a robot sort of species. The Geth got smart enough to realize why they shouldn't take orders. They ended up sort of taking over the planet of the Quarians, basically kicking them out, and they basically became hermits. And they live on the migrant fleet, and they live out in sort of deep space trying to find a new home. Same sort of idea here, a little bit different. The difference is the Dredge come and destroy Earth, and that the dregs of humanity, those that are left, are get jobs working as scrappers and live in like colony ships and things like that, but they are disliked by all the other races. And again, it's funny that I'm using that as a reference, considering this came out before Mass Effect. So there's a high potentiality that the creators of Mass Effect and the Quarians probably could have potentially used this movie as a template. I don't know that for sure, but it's a possibility because this film came first. But even so, it reminds me very much like that, like the humans are the Quarians, like the other alien races, like they don't like us. We get in the way. It's the fact of it's very much the fact of like it's get away, humans. You're done for. You're extinct. Like go and be killed by the Dredge. We don't care about you. That's how it feels. And that's that sort of added sort of context and those sort of bits makes the world feel a lot more alive. And then from there, we find ourselves on another planet. I didn't get the name of the planet, but the planet again, this is the planet was on about where it feels like a music video for a very demonic sort of screamo heavy metal band. And I loved it. I thought it was absolutely incredible. Something like Dio or something like that, something very satanistic, but also like really awesome at the same time. It looked like I would probably say like a Meatloaf, one of the Meatloaf's earlier covers, one of those. But the point is I'm trying to get to is the fact you get to this planet and they meet these like raptor sort of species, and they help them kind of decipher this map, and then the dredge attack again, and this is when the music sort of kicks in and you get these sort of epic sort of moments. And then I'm going to skip ahead a bit. I'm going to skip, and then we're going to bring it right to almost to the end of the film. They finally find the Titan, and once they finally find it, you realise that the Titan is basically an ark. You know, on the Titan, it has tons of vials of every single species that lived on the Earth, including, I would imagine, all the plants and all of the sort of human DNA and stuff like that. And it's basically the fact of the Titan is a nuclear reactor, and the idea is that with enough power, the Titan will explode, but with that explosion, it will create a sort of gravity field, which then will suck in all of the probably well, it's inside a nebula, so it's going to take out all the materials inside the nebula, mix them together, and then it's going to make a new planet for humanity. Which I'll be honest is a very cool visual, and it's very awesome, the whole scene. So you do get that answer sort of an example as to why the Titan is so important and why it's so meaningful that they get to it before the dredge does, because obviously the dredge want to destroy it. But again, the problem is we never really fully understand as to why the dredge want to destroy humans. You know, it's never really explained. It's just the fact of the only really example you get is the fact of, oh, they want to kill humans because they fear of what humans might become. Well, what will humans become? You know, where in 30? I think it's set in 3040. I think it's set in or something like that, or around that time. What happens in that timeline of humanity? Because we don't look like we've evolved that much. We're a bit more advanced, of course, but we don't look like we've actually changed, and we don't have like sort of psychotic, not psychotic, what's the one I'm thinking about, like, you know, we haven't got telekinesis and we can't speak through, you know, each other's minds and telepathy. That's what I was looking for. You know, we haven't got this sort of thing. We're not super intelligent. We're not like all inspiring gods or anything. We still are very much human. We're still very much grounded. So there's no real sort of like, I can't see anything when I'm sitting there going, yeah, this is why they would attack us. It's like, no, it's just like, even if it just went, they just attacked us for our resources. So it's something simple like that. That's all it really needed. Just a reason for them to attack. Because that's what kept playing in my mind, is the fact of the dredge of pure energy. They're basically living reactors. Each one of them is just pure energy, right? Which again is a very cool idea, very cool concept, and they look incredible. But it would be, you know, in that idea, you could say, oh, they came looking for humans because for some unknown reason, humans just have something that they want in terms of the human energy, human spirit. Or it could be the fact that they just wanted our materials, they wanted our planet. They wanted our DNA, you know, and the best way to get it was to get the Titan, the big arc ship, and they could get the whole DNA basis for all of humanity as well as the whole planet, and then they wanted to use it for something. You know, these are just ideas that off my head, but that's all it needed. It just needed a bit of sort of info dump, a bit of expose, like, oh, the dredge want to kill humans for X, Y, and Z reason. It didn't have to be huge. It could just be the simplest of things of wanting resources, and that would have been fine, and that we wouldn't play in my mind so much. But when you keep saying that the dredge are a danger, the dredge hate humanity, the dredge this, the dredge that, I'm like, well, you can't tell me that they are the villains just because they shoot us. You have to give me a reason to sort of not like them and to root for the good guys. Because otherwise, you're just telling me that they're there to kill humans. But it's the fact of, well, but why? You know? And that was the only real sort of big issue I had in terms of the story, is the fact of everything else worked quite interestingly. It's the fact of, you just never gave me a reason to hate the dredge. You never gave me a reason to not like them, just the fact that they blew up the earth. And I'm like, okay, you know, it's tragic. Don't get me wrong. You know, I live here. Don't want it to blow up, but at the same stage, it's the fact of you never really get to the point as to why, you know, and that's the only real sort of issue I have. As for sort of the music and the story, well, they work in tandem, really. They work hand in hand. Like I said, you know, that you get the moments where you know, something's happening, and then you get really cool, epic sort of rock music. And I like I said, I do miss it. I do miss that sort of generation, that time of movies, live action and animated films. Again, I'm trying to think. I think the last time, I don't know, the last time I actually remember watching a movie that actually had it. Like, I remember about a modern movie, and we don't really get it sort of nowadays. But The soundtrack is pretty beautiful. Like, you have the orchestral moments as well, and it goes in really well with the design and the way the world looks. And like, what I loved about the design, not only with the aliens and all that, was the fact of how they. There are certain moments. Like I said, this is a movie from the year 2000, right? So it's not going to be brilliant today's standards. Um, and there are some moments where you watch this film and you're like, that's seamless. That looks gorgeous. The whole sort of 2D animation, and then you have the 3D in the background, or for the bigger, more sort of grander scale sort of moments. Um, Absolutely flawless. Sometimes it works really well. And then other parts where you're like, okay, that looks dated. That looks 2000s. That don't look good at all. But it's so few and far between that for me, mostly, like, I was enjoying the story. I really enjoying the characters and the voice actors. But for me, it was mostly the visuals which took my attention the most, and with the soundtrack in the background and the moments where it felt like a music video and the nostalgia. All of that is what pulled me in the most. So I was like, oh, I like this. I miss this. Um, and I'm sitting there thinking, I wish that this sort of style, this sort of 2D hand drawn creatures, animated animals and people and worlds with a 3D background. I wish this was the standard. I wish this lasted longer than it did. And we are starting to go back to it now. DreamWorks are pioneers of that. Right, while the Wild Robot did it, Bad Guys, which is another DreamWorks movie, did it, as well as Puss in Boots 2: The Last Wish. That did it flawlessly. It's probably one of the best examples I can think of. So it is coming back into style, into fashion now, because things always do come back into fashion, which I'm glad about. I just wish that it never truly died. I wish it was still a thing that was done, because it does work really, really well, and it looks fantastic. You got the characters that are hand drawn, but then you've got these really incredible sort of huge vistas that look incredible in 3D, but then you've got those little moments where you've got the 2D part of it as well. And I can't really explain it. It's more of a visual thing. It's like, once you see it, it just feels right. It just feels comfortable. And maybe it's the nostalgia, maybe it's because that's what movies were like that I grew up with. But it just works really, really well. And you can see the moments that the hand drawn, where somebody's actually spent time to really put loads of detail into things, and then you can see this sort of organic growth of that, which is 3D. And I really, really sort of appreciate it for that. But yeah, my overall sort of thoughts of this film is that it's all right. It's not brilliant. Like, it's not something that's going to sort of change your world. Like, it's not a film that you watch it and you sit there and you're like, oh my god, my whole sort of being has been sort of annihilated. I don't know who I am. Like, life is just wow. It's nothing like that. This film is purely a for me anyway, and for somebody my age or people grew up around about sort of when I grew up, it is very much a film of nostalgia. It's a film of the time. It's a film that you can watch back and you can go, you know what? I remember when movies were like this. Like I said, it's a very 2000s movie, basically, because it came out in 2000. Um, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just pure nostalgia, I would say. Like I said, the story itself, yeah, it's not brilliant, because there are a lot of holes in it. And considering this movie is almost about 2 hours long, you would expect there to be a lot more holes plugged in terms of story, and even just a little bit more example here and there. But I I sit here and thinking about this movie in this terms. If you think about the film as a example, if you think of it as a test, as a proof of concept, as of like, this is what the next generation, the next century of animated movies could be. You know what I mean? Like, it's the year 2000. It's the new millennia. It's the start of a brand new sort of century. What have we got? What have we got to show? What have we learned from the 20th century that we can bring into the 21st century? So let's take the 2D sort of format that we've literally perfected, and then let's take this new technology with 3D CGI and computer animated technology, and let's put them together, and let's make a film for the future, for well, the present, for the new century, and let's bring in sort of some hard rock and some epic set pieces, and let's do let's bring in some of the high class actors of the time, like Bill Pullman, Matt Damon, Drew Barrymore, John Leguizamo. Let's bring in some really talented voice actors like Jim Cummings, and even let's bring in somebody that we're only going to have for a little bit, but let's bring in the sort of the younger audience. So we put Tone Lock in as Tech. We'll bring in all these things to kind of bring in the audience, and then we would just make a movie that is a testament of what we can do and what will be able to be done, but better in the future. And that's how I see it. That might not be what their original plan was, because again, the original plan was to make a live action film. But from watching this, it just felt like an example. It felt like a proof of concept. And that's not a bad thing, because, I'm not saying, again, I don't know for sure. So I'm not saying that other movies watch this and went, okay, so that's what they tried to do. Let's try and do better. I'm not saying that. But that could be the case. There's a high potentiality that this movie come out, and even though it didn't do very well, there's a high potentiality this movie came out, people saw it and said, okay, so this is what the future of animation could be. And let's try and build off that. Let's try and make something else. Let's try and use this technology and to do other things with it. And yeah, who knows what inspires people? Who knows what can bring inspirations? But there were, like I said, there were a lot of moments where I felt like I was watching Mass Effect. I felt like I was watching Treasure Planet. I felt like I had seen this film's sort of inspiration in other games and other animated movies and even live action movies. So again, I don't know it for sure, but it does feel kind of like a movie that's had the helpings to inspire other sort of science fiction genres and other science fiction movies and television and maybe even books and things like that in sort of this century, in the last sort of 25 years. It feels that way. Again, don't know for sure, but that's just the feeling that I get. And for that, I enjoy it. I appreciate it for what it is and what it tried to do. And that's all I ever ask of people that listen to this podcast and of a movie or whatever it is I'm watching or reading, is the fact of take it for what it is, not for what you want it to be. And for what it is and how I take it, it's a proof of concept. And in that way, it works, But yeah, so overall thoughts, I'd say give it a go, give it a watch. It's on Disney Plus. If you've got it, give it a watch, and see if you like it and enjoy it. And if you're somebody like me and you enjoy animation and you love, when animated studios really sort of push the boat and try something different, and try something unique, even if the story's not there, the visually sort of the animation side of it is there, you might enjoy it for that. Who knows? Anyway, before we end things, I want to do a bit of trivia because I love my trivia. So first bit of trivia I've got is for a preview screening on the 6th of June 2000 in Atlanta. This movie was transmitted in digital form from the studio across the internet to the digital projector at the theatre. It never once touched film and was the first major Hollywood film to be publicly previewed this way. To tie in with the film, there was a series of prequel novels released, as well as a prequel comic book miniseries. I wish I had known that before I started watching this film, because I would have read the novels. Come on, let's be honest. If you've been listening to this show long enough, I would. I would have went and looked for those prequel novels, and I would have, like the mini comic. I'm going to have to Google them now. Oh, God. Oh, where is it? Titan A.E. God. Prequel novels. Let's have a look what Google has to say. Prequel novels. Right. Okay. Let's have a look. It's called a Kima story. A prequel novel called Chaos Tale is a young adult novel by Kevin J. Anderson and Rebecca Monster, featuring Cal Tucker, the hero of the film Titan A.E. You've got Akira's story. After Earth. Akira, a refugee from Earth, is living in a drifter colony, risks everything to become the first possible starship pilot so she can go in search of the legendary ship Titan, which may enable the human race to regain its freedom. I kind of wish I knew these existed, because these probably would have given me the answers. You know what I mean? Like, and again, I've said this before, and I feel like I'm going to beat a dead horse here right now. The problem is when you have extended media, right? granted, this is from the 2000s, so I can't bully it so much. But when you've got extended media, right? If you're going to put big overarching story beats in this extended media, that is actually really important. If those story beats were in the main thing, i.e., the movie, then you've got to advertise it. You've got to make sure people know that, because they're going to go in to watch the film, because not everybody's going to read the comics, not everybody's going to read the books, because not everybody's sad like me. You know, where you're going to be like, I don't understand why the Dredge don't like us. For all I know, now I know these things exist. All I know is that these comic books and these books give an example as to why the Dredge hate humanity. The answers could be here. And now I've got, well, I might do it, I might not do it. Depends, really. But now I feel like I have to go read the prequel novels to figure out as to why. You know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't have to, but now I feel like I have to. And I'm going to be annoyed in the fact if I go and read these and to find they don't give me the answers, then that's what's putting me off, is the fact if I can't guarantee the answers are going to be there, you know? But yeah, I'm just having a quick Google on like Goodreads, and then you've got a tie-in novel which actually comes with the movie for the movie, which is obviously Titan A.E. Then you've got a Kima story, Kale story, and then there's loads of. Hold on, let me go back. There's comic books as well, prequel graphic novels. There was 3 of them. The prequel to the hotly anticipated sci-fi film of the year. They have characters that I haven't seen in the film. So I'm guessing they would give the example as to why the Dredge hate humans. I don't know, but I don't know. I feel like that is important. That I should have known this, but I don't know. Maybe I'm going to be crazy and do it. But that's it not annoyed me. It's just kind of yeah. It's kind of got on my nerve a little bit, just a little bit. Whereas the fact of I wish I had known that, but it doesn't matter now. I've watched the movie. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. I'm too busy. I probably won't. Let's be honest. But still, if I had known, I probably would have sought them out and tried to find some details on them or story beats so I could use it in the review. But it's neither here nor there. The thing is, it is what it is. Move on. Anyway, so because this film, obviously more trivia, by the way. So because this film didn't do well at the box office, 20th Century Fox closed its animation studios in Arizona after only 2 feature films. The other was Anastasia. Fox then contracted Blue Sky to produce animated films using 3D computer graphics, which then turned into Ice Age and Robots, and then the rest is history. So it's kind of funny that Titan A.E. links in directly to my Blue Sky Studios series. This is where it began. Like, Blue Sky helped to work on this film, and then this film died because it wasn't successful. It flopped, and makes total sense when you consider that they don't actually explain a lot of things in the story. But so the movie flopped, and then they were like, Blue Sky, why don't you make some movies for us? And then history was made with Ice Age and Robots. So one died so the other could live. It's kind of tragic, but it's the way it is. As of 2023, this is Don Bluth's most recent animated film. Bluth has remained vague about a return to animated films, but his longtime collaborator, Gary Goldman, has been attempting to finance a film based on Bluth's Dragon Lair 1983 video game. I've never played Dragon Lair. I've watched people play it. I've seen a gameplay of it. Always wanted to give it a go. I know there's a version of it on the Xbox Series X that was like the Xbox 360 version, but I've never properly sat and played it myself. But I would happily watch an animated Don Bluth movie. I love Don Bluth. I think the guy is incredible. He's made Don Bluth made some of the best, most underrated animated movies ever. In my opinion, and I say that because I grew up with a lot of them. Like for example, you've got the Secret Nymph, you've got Anastasia, you've got the small one, you've got the Fox and the Hound, you've got Mickey's Christmas Carol. He did the Rover Dangerfield movie, which love it or hate it, he did that movie. He did loads, and he is incredible. He's one of the best, really. And I'd love to see him come back. I really, really would, because again, he was just is an incredible animator. But yeah, I this movie overall, I'm going off a bit. I went on a bit of a tandem there because I got a little bit annoyed about the sort of books and all that. But overall, Titan A.E., it's not bad. Would I recommend going out and reading the prequel novels if you want to? But yeah, I don't know. It would have been nice if they had the explanation as to why they don't like humans in the film, but I don't know. Maybe they just assumed people would read the external sort of media. Who knows? Either way, I'm done. I'm tired. So that was Titan A.E. Hope you all liked it and enjoyed it, and you enjoyed my little sort of rant there at the end and my little sort of annoyance. But it is what it is. That's life. You know what I mean? That's what all the people say. You're flying high in April and you're shut down in March the 22nd, which is when I'm recording this. So, yeah, so thank you very much for listening. I've been your host, Luke the Human. You've been listening to the Howdy Beans podcast. Again, if you listen to this on Spotify or YouTube, don't forget to leave a comment down below. Also, again, on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And also, again, if you listen on Spotify, don't forget to give me a follow if you haven't already, or even rate the podcast. And follow me on X at HowdyBeans_pod. And that's it, really. Yeah, that's it. That's everything. So thank you very much for listening. I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.